All right, good evening. This is Tuesday, December 16th, 2014. This is the Refinery, the place where grassroots organizations come together to explore the best ways to make conservative messaging work, to reach and influence even more people. You can watch us live here every Tuesday at 8:30 Central on therefineryshow.com or our Google Plus event from our community. That website also has links for you to listen or download later to our podcast, which is broadcast on Vigilant Liberty Radio. You can also listen to the podcast and subscribe via iTunes or Stitcher or TuneIn Radio or Spreaker. Spreaker is where the Vigilant Liberty Radio thing is played. This is also broadcast on YouTube, and you can watch our YouTube channel. And also throughout the week, JD and Felicia put together clips, kind of a best of 5-minute clips that we share out on Google and Facebook and Twitter. So if you're not able to listen to the Refinery, well, ask someone for help because we're doing the best we can to make sure that we're out there. We're everywhere you want to be, like Visa. Uh-oh, am I going to get a cease and desist from somebody? Oh,
Great,
no.
the letters
The
getting.
Refinery is not sponsored by Visa.
Oh no, there's going to be a copyright violation. Oh no. Okay, and as this is going to be not our second to the last show before Christmas, because I think we're going to go ahead and do the show on December the 23rd, Tuesday before. I'll be here. Felicia will be here. Whoever else is here is here. Why not? But anyway, tonight we have me and Ryan from the Conservative Union. We have Peter, JD, and Felicia from Free Radical Network. And we have Chandra from the Party of Choice. Corey and Andy are out today doing something. Hopefully they're buying me a really nice present for Christmas.
I believe what's happening is they went ladder shopping so that when Andy digs his next hole, they had some trouble getting him out of it the last time, so they need a new ladder to make sure that he can get out of there.
One of those lightweight collapsible ones that Corey can carry and drop down to him. That makes sense. That's really a good plan. He is so good at digging holes for himself, and he totally keeps digging.
The world needs ditch diggers too.
That's true.
Because we care, we usually help him dig, which is my personal thrill.
Is that a shovel-ready job?
Oh, yeah, it is. It's a shovel-ready job. Way to go. Also, tonight is the first night of Hanukkah, so happy Hanukkah for Hanukkah celebrators out there everywhere. If you haven't yet heard the Maccabees song about Hanukkah, it's a great one. It's all about flipping latkes in the air sometimes, singing Ayo, Ayo. I'm not going to sing for y'all. You're welcome. You truly don't know how painful it would be if I did sing for you. So, that's the happy Hanukkah celebration, beginning of our 12 festival, 8 nights Festival of Lights kind of thing, celebration of lights. Then also in the news today, I'm certain that everybody has seen the terrorist attack in Pakistan, where last I heard it was 135 people dead. Is that?
Including mostly kids, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
because the Taliban decided to go in and blow up a military school. Lots of young men and women. Was it mostly boys? Was it a boys' school or was it a mixed gender?
I'm not entirely sure. I didn't see anything specific about that. All I know is that in the past week we had the guy holed up in Australia in the chocolate shop and the hostage situation there.
That was just yesterday.
I know, it's insane.
Yeah.
And we have this. It's
yeah.
Not
and
been a
I
good
don't
week.
know. I don't know how much the thing in Australia was a Muslim terrorist deal versus a really bad guy. I mean, the guy had a criminal record long as your arm and was just a horrifically bad person who was also a radical Muslim extremist. I think that was a tipping point and an excuse for him, though probably not a primary motivator. I think evil in general was his primary motivator. The Taliban attack at the school in Pakistan was quite clearly religious extremism. It was it was Islamism or whatever it is. And remember, this is the Taliban, and the Taliban kicked ISIS out because ISIS was too crazy for the Taliban. Just for
But
some perspective for you guys. And ISIS, and well, it was earlier this year, I believe, that Obama talked about negotiating with the Taliban. And Hillary has just recently spoken about how we need to empathize with our enemies, not talk to them, not negotiate with them, not cooperate with them, or any of the fairly normal diplomatic, political things that one would say. But she was genuinely talking about being sensitive and understanding and empathizing, not sympathizing, but empathizing with our enemies. And
We
she
should
meant, and she was talking about ISIS.
we should check our non-Islamic terrorist privilege.
Yeah, apparently. With the pandering to the Islamic enemy and the inability to name it for what it is among the left, followed by the atrocities that they continue to commit on a regular basis, it makes me lose all respect for people who vote for them, because I just can't understand how you can support that in the face of these kinds of atrocities. I don't get it.
Leslie, if I may step in for a moment,
Sure.
couple things on this particular one, the Taliban shooting up the school. They blatantly said that this was revenge for giving the Nobel Peace Prize to Malala, so that Muslim girl. So they said, we're here to kill all the other Malalas. So they also set a teacher on fire in front of the children. The children, just so you know, were ages, they were teenagers, so we're looking between 13, 14, and 16 years old. And they were not discriminated about their killing. It was basically everybody at the school, teachers and children. I'd also like to point out that for our own memory's sake, this is not the first school shooting where large numbers of children have been murdered by Muslim extremists. The other one would be Beslan in Chechnya, and Muslim extremists did the same thing there, and it was much more horrific. I will not go into the graphic details on that one, but it's
And that was
obviously
2-3 years. When was Beslan?
Beslan would
3-4
have
years
been
ago?
no, this would have been about
Longer.
8 or 9 years ago, so much further back.
And that was like
So
400 people dead.
yes, 400 dead, and there was
Over a
real
period of days.
concerns. It was over a period of days, and it was pretty horrific. So to say, well, this is just an isolated case, it certainly is not. So anyway, that's all I had to add. I just felt that those were pertinent facts to the discussion. So thank you.
Yeah, it's mind blowing that we can gauge Islamic school shootings from these terrorist incidents and say that any number of people killed, but the fact that there's such a there's a grade between this past shooting and the one in Brazil, that it's absolutely mind blowing what these guys are doing. It's awful.
Well, and the prediction is that the next world war, global conflagration that we're going to have, will be kind of termed the clash of civilizations, only because it's a little too awkward to say it's the war between civilization and non-civilization, but it really will be civilization versus non-civilization. And the Islamists are fighting against the forces of civilization because they don't want girls to be educated. I mean, this is a real thing to them. They really think women shouldn't go to school. And we have people saying we should negotiate.
Well, okay, but
empathize with that.
But let's think about that for a second, and I'm not defending this in any way, but in that part of the world, in the Middle East in general, that's been a view for a long time. Western ideas and women voting, driving. Women could own businesses, sort of, in part, but typically commerce was done by men. Education was handled by men. Harems were a thing. This is not new culturally. And what's happened is it's sort of, you've given the Middle East a taste of Western life. There's been very advanced Western inroads in the 20th century made in these countries, and now they're going back, and that is
right. It's the backsliding.
Yes, because we have seen women being highly educated, going to college. In the 70s is when this sort of thing started to turn. But before that,
we've
you
all
had
seen the
modern
pictures
era.
like in Egypt and Iran of college women and that kind of thing.
Right, but that was a 20th century sort of happening sort of thing that came culturally to the Middle East, sort of westernized things. And then in the 70s, that was like the peak of that, and then it got rolled back.
Precisely. If I could kind of step in there just for a second. The way I don't like to speak a whole lot on Muslim culture simply because I'm not an authority. I'm not well educated on the Muslim religion nor on Sharia law. And I understand that the two are separate entities, although, they combine them oftentimes. The way that I understand it is that women are not, and I think that this is more according to Sharia law. And like I said, I'm not an authority, but I don't think women are considered to be humans per se. I think they're more along the lines of another kind of species almost, that help promote the male species. But that kind of goes back to medieval thinking. And, I do know that sometime along the line in Christian beliefs that, that I think it was the Roman Catholic Church at some time, and it was in the Dark Ages. It was, like around 1500, that they got together and decided that women were human. I don't think that the Muslim religion, and I shouldn't say Muslims, that the Sharia law people have gotten there yet, where they see women as people.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. Sorry, go ahead, Russ.
No, I was going to say I agree with that. I mean, really, if you look at Western culture, I mean, you talk about going back to 14th, 15th century, or even the 13th century, that they said, hey, this is women are actually not chattel or cattle, just a piece of property, but rather they're human beings, like men. But that being said, I'd like to point out that women didn't have a right to vote in this country until, 100 years ago? I think it's even been less than that. I mean, not that I keep track. I just, for me, I grew up, and it's like, well, yeah, women could vote. I don't understand what the issue is.
It was 1920. I remember that episode of Schoolhouse Rock. It was 1920.
Okay, 1920. There we go,
the
then.
19th Amendment struck down that restrictive law. Felicia is singing along with me.
I haven't researched this, so I don't know, and perhaps somebody can step in and tell me, but I'm curious, when did women get the right to vote in other countries, for example, Europe or Australia or Canada? I'm curious as to whether or not the United States led the way on that.
Now I'm just having flashbacks from Mary Poppins and Sister Suffragettes and that song, because, yeah.
Yes, I forgot that was a subplot to that movie. That's well remembered. Nice job there, Fishy.
I can sing it for you if you like.
She will too. She
Probably
will.
Yes, let's move on from that. But no, typically, I mean, we're talking about Western culture advancing a certain way, and then a non-Western culture rolling those things back, looking at the West as decadent, looking at the West as anathema to their values. And you can see why that culture clash is coming, because there have been, and we're looking at it from the side of the West, by the way, where we accept now things in 2014 that 100 years ago were pretty radical, i.e. women voting. And unless you're looking at things with those Western values and that Western history, other people are not looking at it that way. So obviously, the problems with that radical Islamist trend, that Sharia trend, come from, in part, either a rejection of the West values or a complete misunderstanding of them, or the way in which they're interpreted for them. I don't know. But we're also very guilty of looking at things through our Western eyes and thinking everybody knows that women are not property. That's a Western cultural phenomenon in a lot of ways. That's not universal.
That doesn't make it any less true, and that's not what you're trying to say. It's just that there are cultures that don't get it. They haven't gotten to that point yet. And I would say that how many more school shootings, how many more dead kids does it take? And the person that they were doing these killings because of, saying that they were doing it because Malala Yousafzai got a Nobel Prize. I mean, they already tried to kill her. I mean, they already tried. She was shot. It was not looking good for a very long time there for her. So how much more of this can they take? How much more of this are they willing to deal with before something happens, before you get a cultural shift? That's a huge situation, a huge point for this whole culture that we're talking about, and hopefully that point comes sooner than later.
And when we're looking at Hillary Clinton and talking about empathizing with other cultures, you've said it before. We've talked about it from Neil Stevenson. Some cultures are better than others, and you can see that in a lot of the outcome, the proof of that respect for life is a value that we take for granted. Mostly, there's a cult of people that don't in our country, but you know what I'm saying, if you know what I mean. But that sort of Western value system, whatever its faults might be in letting people run around and do things they want to do rather than obey and follow and comply, it just shows we're superior. It's that other cultures are rejecting it because it doesn't fit their worldview. But still, Western civilization, yay. I will always say Western civilization is superior. Just the outcomes alone give you that example. I mean, you don't find religious factions now wandering around different places and shooting up, children in schools because they're ticked off at somebody honoring someone else. I'm sorry, that's an inferior culture, and I'll say it all day long, every day.
Yeah, I have some friends that are Muslim, and I've grown up with some neighbors who are Muslim who are great people. And the thing I don't understand, and Chandra was trying to be politically correct earlier and saying it's not Muslims, it's the Sharia law followers and things like that. But when I talk to those people, they'll tell me face to face, yeah, it's bad what's happening. My family that's still there hates it. They wish they could get out. We've been back a few times, and it was really hard. Like, one girl talked about how they were in the bazaar with her and her brothers, and a man touched her or said something to her. She turned around and started talking back to him, and her older brother grabbed her and took her. I was like, you do not say that. She's like, it's a good thing I'm not living there because I'd be dead by now. But so they don't support it, but why are Muslims not speaking out? Why is there not a Muslim coalition of Muslim Americans or Muslims from those countries coming out and saying, we don't approve of these actions, we don't approve of these tactics? They'll say it in private sometimes. That's my issue with it. That's why I don't bother being politically correct. It's like, if there's over 1 billion Muslims, they say this is a rogue group of a few people, maybe a few hundred or a few thousand that are doing these acts. So why don't the rest of the billion stand up and stop it?
Well, I'm going to add too that you're talking about breaking a cultural norm that is centuries old. It isn't something that you do overnight. And we've only broken that cultural norm within the last 100 years. It'll be, well, it's 96 years. Let's see, I'll carry that to, no, 94, 95 years. So, carry the two, yeah, that's right. So, it really hasn't even been that long here in our culture. It's just that our generation grew up with that, so it was a norm, not something that was new. And I wonder how long the suffrages had to campaign to get that done. Was it just a couple of years? I suspect decades. And I think, if I
No, I
remember
think it was a
correctly,
couple of decades of suffragettes doing their thing. But you know
yeah.
what? Even in medieval England,
Mm-hmm.
going in and massacring 100 students because you don't like what somebody else did would have been seen as a cause for war.
Well, it would have been, it actually wouldn't have caused
Even
war. It would have been an act of war.
exactly. So even in our most unenlightened medieval times when women were still chattel, our society, our humanity was such that we wouldn't have done that. We wouldn't have held a school of 400 children hostage and then massacred them all. We wouldn't have done it. Actually, there were, I'm going to correct myself, and I know anybody who's listening to this who knows history, there have been and there were, I believe, in that era, some pretty massive atrocities, and certainly during the Crusades there was the whole cultural thing of if your enemy did not surrender, then you were obligated to go kill them all, including the women and children, and that was something that happened in some of the earlier Crusades because it was a part of the policy of war. Those were actually the rules of war. But we evolved past that hundreds of years ago.
Well, I was
Even
going to say, if
before women,
you want
even
open
before women
slaughter,
were allowed to vote. You know, we
look at
wouldn't
the
have done it in
Mongols.
the 1700s.
Look at the Mongols. They wiped out entire children to the
Yeah.
to the person. I mean, wiped it out. That's one reason why they were able to roll over everybody, is because they went, they're serious about it.
Fear, yeah, and that's so the tactics that the Islamists are using, and calling them terrorists misses the point because that's a tactic, and they're using their religion as the rallying point because they don't have a nation, they don't have the uniforms of a nation under which they under that is the flag that they fly. They have the flag of ISIS. Their religion is the flag under which they fly. So we have to kind of use their religion as a term to describe and group them because they do. That's their self-definition, is that they are soldiers for Allah, and they are using battlefield tactics of 500 years ago.
Well, to be honest, it was the Mongols that taught them that, because if you look carefully where the Mongols practiced that, it was where they are now, Afghanistan and Iran. That was where the Mongols burned those cities to the ground.
They're using the tactics of their leader, or their their Muhammad, the guy who got the whole religion started for him in about the 1400s.
Yeah.
Or when did Islam come along? 500, 1400? I don't even know.
I have to go back and look. I think it's about 1400. 700. Felicia Cravens. It's about 1400 years old, if I recall.
Okay.
So.
I think the main point, the crux of what we're talking about, and something that was mentioned in the chat by George Templeton, the thing that we're talking about, why it is that more Muslims don't come out and talk against the terrorist acts, when the guys that you would be decrying are clearly willing to kill anyone who is in opposition to them, it kind of puts a damper on conversation. That's it's generally not a helpful thing to getting dissent out there when in response to that dissent you are, likely to be killed for it. It's one thing to have freedom of speech. It's another thing to have freedom of speech. If freedom of speech comes, is a natural right. But that freedom of speech, when you're in a place where, talking about these issues gets you killed, I mean, I can understand why so many Muslims are not speaking out about it outside of the U.S. I mean, inside the U.S., we've had people talk about it, but maybe it's not enough. I don't know. I will say that I understand if you are in these in the Middle East and you don't want to talk about the Islamic terrorism that goes on, and don't want to talk about the horrific atrocities. I get it, because you don't want that to happen to you. You don't want that at your doorstep.
Right. We've talked about how conservative business owners don't donate politically because they know that they will be harassed by the left, and they don't want to have to lose their job like Brendan Ike did. So, we have the bullies here who intimidate people politically. That's 1/10 of the risk. And we have very successful, very strong, tough executives, high-powered executives that cave to that pressure. And all it is financial pressure. Whereas you have people over in the Middle East who actually put their lives on the line, literally, and they do die for it regularly. So yeah, I'm with you on the, if you're a Coptic Christian in Egypt, just do what you can to get the hell out, and then speak against it. Just get out, because there's no other way. I mean, I don't know how this I don't know how this ends without a lot of bloodshed, which there's already been a lot of bloodshed, but I think it's going to be worse. And all I can hope is that we stand strong for our American exceptionalism and do continue to understand and promote and fight for the fact that our way is better. It's not a brag, it's a fact. Just like
Yep.
Texas is better. No brag, just fact.
Hey now, that's
You're outnumbered, JD. Totally not.
Well, he's a Jets fan. It's in his
Three
nature.
of us here. 3 Texans on this call, man. 3.
What did I do? Every week
You and Ryan and Chandra are just toast.
and
toast.
it's just like, man, it's rough. Felicia pointed out in the group chat that major props to Bill Maher for continuing to talk about Islam as it is, and not pulling any punches and turning a blind eye towards it. Props to anyone who talks about it, because it is seriously a scary thing to do. I mean, people get killed over talking about Islam. That's it's mind-boggling. We have, and talking again about culture. I don't know how many people died because of Piss Christ again. Oh,
That would be
one.
nobody,
Good sake.
and I'm pretty sure that the artist who did that probably got really rich
and
not dead.
Yeah, you draw a cartoon of Muhammad, and then you wind up splattered on the floor. So
Right.
I want to point out one thing. Felicia says there are no John Adams in Islam or Thomas Jeffersons. I was also going to say that you were talking about the fact that Coptic Christians literally put their life on the line. We talk about our founding fathers and say, they put on the line their lives, their fortune, and their sacred honor. We don't have to do that anymore because of the sacrifices that they made. Now
and
what
most
we're
of
seeing,
them did lose their fortunes.
yes,
We
but I
don't
would also,
we don't really pay attention to that after we won the war. These guys went broke.
well, I would also point out too that that's then. I'm talking about now,
Right.
and these are the people in the Middle East that are putting it on the line, and some of them are losing their lives and their fortunes and their sacred honor just so that they can have what we have. So I think at this point the John Adams and the Thomas Jeffersons just haven't come forward yet because there isn't enough of them. But there are people out there that are making the same sacrifices that both John and Thomas made. So
There might not be John Adams or Thomas Jeffersons, but there are Malalas. So, and for right now, that might be a good first step.
And there was one story that we mentioned a couple weeks back, and I've already forgotten the details, but there was a checkpoint in Iraq or Afghanistan, and a woman and her family went up to it, and the guys at the ISIS guys at the checkpoint or whatever started shooting, or maybe they did. They shot one person, and the woman, who the bad guys assumed that she was going to become a victim, she picked up the gun and shot back, and that rallied the people around her to fight back, and it ended up being that the woman and her clan that was with her killed and caused to run away a bunch of ISIS terrorists because they had the strength and the nothing left to lose that guided them to pick up the gun and fight back against these terrorists.
I don't know if people remember this, and this was called to mind during the Eric Garner business in the past couple of weeks. Someone brought up that the Arab Spring began with a merchant who was harassed by the government, the forces, the powers that be, and kept attempting to keep him from selling, thwarting his business, his enterprise, and so he burned himself in protest. And that's not to draw a parallel between those two cases. What it's to do is to say that it's not just these religious-based organizations, it's the states in which people find themselves as well that are fostering an environment of sit down, shut up, comply. So it's not just these forces that are outside. It's state-sponsored and state-sanctioned harassment and attempting to get people to follow the rules, the dictates, the laws, whatever, and pick them to death with these little regulations or something. Yes, we have that culturally here too.
EPA?
Just not to that extent. I haven't seen anybody torch themselves because, yes, the Forest Service is, or the what is it, the agency that declares animals on the endangered list.
Fish, Game, and Wildlife?
Yeah, whoever declares endangered species.
EPA, Environmental Protection Act.
I haven't seen anybody self-immolate over things like that here. Not that it couldn't happen, but there are other ways to protest due to our cultural references, due to the way that we've structured our culture. There are different ways to protest, and people don't have to go to those extremes. But you can certainly understand in states, across the Middle East, why people would.
Particularly when they don't have the sort of Western ecosystem that we have. How many Westernized states are there in the? Oh, there's just one.
Just Israel. Happy Hanukkah. Yeah. Those guys are the model that everybody should be following, and they're not. It's just weird. Isn't it amazing when you look at the big battles? They do tend to be one group wanting to impose their power and control over another group. The aggressor is the one who wants to exert power and control, and those who want to just be left alone and have freedom end up being the defenders. And so you have to win with a defense, and that's where conservatism is in the battle against progressivism. And we do talk about it in terms of war and battle, which is a very useful construct, because we can use the terminology of war and battle to define the roles that we play and the positions. And I mean, there's an awful lot of usefulness that can be put to it when we use it as a metaphor, when I use it as a metaphor. But days like today, when there are 135 dead people that quickly, just in an instant. I mean, I think it did last a couple of hours, but I woke up this morning and those people were dead. They had not been dead when I went to bed last night. And that's the real face of real war, of aggressive governmental power and control over the forces wanting to just live their lives. Because those people that are dead are Islamists, and some of them might be fundamentalists who believe in the subjugation of women, but they wanted to go to school, they wanted to learn something, they wanted to be good farmers, they wanted to be good soldiers for their government, they wanted to build a bridge or dig a ditch, they wanted to get married and have children, and they won't have that opportunity because somebody else decided that they needed to die for their cause. And that's the real battle. And that's far more important than Cromnibus. You know?
Good old Cromnibus.
You know, I mean, we get all, and I confess, I did not pay that much attention to the continuing resolution omnibus, not a budget. We're going to fill it up with as much pork and go back and forth. I didn't really pay that much attention to it because I'm so over it with Washington. You know, not that much good is going to come out of Washington for the next 2 years. They're going to spend more money than we have. They're going to annoy me on a regular basis. And the best that's going to happen is that we will maybe hold the left back to not being as dangerous as they could have been. I mean, yeah, it was a big victory in November, but it's a limit. There's a limit to how much that can be done.
That was one incredible segue. I just have to say, I'm impressed.
I'm good.
I'm really impressed. I did a slow clap there. Just wow.
Well, and I wasn't really even forcing the segue, but it really, and I actually did not intend to talk about the massacre in Pakistan today. But we can't, you know, when I was leading or opening up the show with, you know, Happy Hanukkah and it's going to be Christmas and all the happiness, it just hit me. You know what? There's 130 people that are not going to have, they don't celebrate Christmas, but they're not going to have their winter holiday. They don't get to go to school tomorrow. And so we kind of needed to talk about that, and then it became a discussion about Islam, and then it's like, okay, reaching for the opportunity to stop talking about something sad, let's talk about what we were going to talk about, which is Cromnibus, and then it's like, oh my God, that's so irrelevant at this point, isn't it?
It is, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it personally, is that it passed and it's done. You know,
they spent $1 billion. We have $1 billion to spend. Woohoo!
Yeah, I mean, it was going to $1 trillion. It was going to happen. It happened. Suck it up, and let's move on to the next round. There are people who no doubt should be primaried over this in their districts, but that's a small number. The thing that just shocked me, and it really didn't shock me after the initial oh wow, was after the bill got passed in the House. I saw people calling Trey Gowdy a rhino, not just a rhino, but calling for him to be replaced because he wrote it. Yeah. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No.
It was Trey Gowdy.
Trey Gowdy.
Are you kidding?
Seriously.
How would you? Wait, if Trey Gowdy is not good enough for you, I'm sorry. Dude, really?
No, and that's really the point. Is we eat our own, and it is infuriating. You know, we already knew going into this that Mitch McConnell was going to get. I mean, hell, the day after we won on election day, there were reports of oh, Mitch is waving the white flag. He's surrendered already. Game over, guys. Please. But no, seriously, after the Cromnibus passed, and so I hate that name. After it passed, this happened. This explosion of, oh my God, these are horrible people, rhinos that we need to jump on and get rid of because it was one bill and it was going to pass anyway. There are better targets than Trey Gowdy out there. Please, priorities, people. Can we focus on priorities?
Targets have a D after their name, okay?
Yes.
Seriously? Our guys, even the lamest of our guys, he deserves your silence. If you don't support him, just be silent and pick on the other team, okay? Don't pick on our own team right now.
Oh, I'm not going to go with that statement, not because I think it doesn't apply in this case, but because I don't want that to be the soundbite people take away from this discussion. You know,
No,
that
I
the
don't.
most
Yeah,
you
well.
have is silence. Um, I've spent 5+ years taking our side to task and doing it as often and as forcefully as I can, and I will continue to do that. That's not the thing that I want to focus on. What I think that we have is there's not been enough preparation given around decisions like this, and this is a long-standing pattern we've seen on the right, where Congress, Republicans in Congress, Republicans in the Senate, haven't prepared the ground for actions they're going to take. And because they haven't, we have this whole culture around speculating who's getting what or who's doing what or who's gaining what in terms of a bill. And so when they leave the space blank for the explanation and the conversation around that to happen, the gap gets filled with all of these people speculating. And some of them are attempting to make their name as, you know, an oppositional person to the rhinos, to the establishment, whatever they want to say. And I think the valuable thing for the Senate and the new incoming members of the Senate and the House to take into this is you've got to prepare the ground, and you've got to do it better. And if that means more communications with people like bloggers on the right or the media to attempt to keep us from eating our own, then they'd better get on that. I think that's a much better thing to take away from this than who spent what, who needs to argue about what, whether somebody needs to be called on the carpet or not. It's how about we start doing this better?
Yeah, yeah, and you know, obviously, I'm not going to have a political career because I don't do soundbite speaking very well. You kind of have to, you know, I'll throw out a phrase, and if that phrase is quoted, then and you didn't understand the 4 hours of thinking that went into, and that I really carried behind that phrase, that means I didn't really even mean the words I said. Yeah. So what I meant was, what I should have said was. um, was basically what
Do-over.
yeah, do over. You'll fix it in post, right, JD?
Yes. Well, no, seriously, we'll just cut it out and then
It just
move it
that
all
never
over.
happened.
It'll be fine.
So
Never happened.
can a Tea Party person jump in here? I just, you know, I listened to, you know, everything that you had to say, and I got to tell you, from my perspective, I'm furious. I'm furious that the thing passed. Simply because a lot of the people who were running, you know, especially in places like Colorado, they were running on the platform that they were going to stop Barack Obama. And one of the things that we saw coming was the amnesty thing. We knew that was coming. We knew that it was on the plate. It was there. They were going to force feed it to us. And one of the things that they promised us, those people who were running on the Republican ticket, was that they were going to stop him. And when they just basically handed everything to him in this omnibus package, which fully funds the amnesty thing, and it fully funds Obamacare through this next year. I mean, it's not just me. There are a whole lot of people who are really, really angry. It isn't that I'm wanting to eat my politicians. I certainly don't. I just want them to fulfill the promises that they've kept us. I mean, that they've made to us. And I think that they owe that to us, or at least a very good explanation. And I'm not seeing that. And so,
Well, and
yeah, I think
I
that
think
we need to.
there's a tactical mistake that our guys are making, and we know that the Democrats would. Had the Democrats roundly won at a midterm, even then during the lame duck session when control had not changed, they would be acting as if they already controlled the Senate. And our guys refused to yet act like winners. They were big winners in November 4th. And yes, we do not have the numbers in the Senate. That bill was always going to pass, most likely, because
But
we
wait,
don't control the
wait.
Senate.
Hold on,
But
hold
we
on.
could have
We
acted
control the
like,
House. We
right.
passed it in the House before it got to the Senate. We
Yeah,
control the House
there was some
now.
fighting,
It
never
never should
happened.
have passed the House.
The thing that talking about operating as winners versus, operating as losers, whatever. The thing that we also have to remember, and we talked about this, back when we were talking about the victories in the election, is the fact that we may have won the election, but we still aren't in control of the media. I mean, we still
Right.
don't control all of the other externalities. So even if the optics and the stuff that would happen had we gone full press, to me at least, and this might just be the Rhino perspective, is that if we had gone full press on trying to stop everything and fight now when we don't have the numbers, which we do not have the numbers, on something that was going to go, that even if by some miracle it passed through the Senate, would go to Obama where it would be vetoed immediately, is that the optics would just be horrible. We would be seen as the same old obstructionist Republicans, and we would be destroyed multiple times by everyone, by the entire media. We would be, it would be a bloodbath. And,
Hang on.
what would we get? And what would we get in return? That's my question. What do we get in return? What is the? I have a hard time saying that I'm cool with us getting destroyed in the media for no reward, for no victory.
Okay, if you approach it from the point of a winner, which is we thumped you in 2014, it's the Senate is going to be ours in what, give me a couple of days here kind of thing. We already control the House. We actually extended that lead just a little bit, so we now control two of the three branches there of government, or well, I should say the two of the three houses. We have the Senate. We're going to have the Senate, but we just took the Senate. We already have the House, and we kept the House. And the only thing we don't have is the White House. Okay. Now the left is going to say these are the things that we want, and we say, okay, well, we're not going to give you any of those things. So that's where we start from. And here's my problem with the House leadership as it is now. And as a side note, I don't feel like they waved a white flag. I think it was an orange flag. That should give you an idea where I sit with that leadership. That said, they make a big deal about negotiating. They didn't do any negotiating. They didn't sit down and say, well, we're not going to give you any of this at all. And they say, well, we want all of this. Okay, well, where's the compromise? There wasn't any compromise. It was just like, we're going to cede it all to you. And that was my problem. They could have come out and said, it's obvious that the Republic or the Democrats would like all of this. They could have immediately come out and made some press announcements and said, listen, we're not going to give you all of it, but we're willing to negotiate, and the left is not going to negotiate at all. It's an all or nothing thing here. They talk about compromise. They talk about wanting to have a discussion, but their discussion is, you're not going to give us anything. And I think even with the press not being on our side, you can still, with it carefully worded, make it play well in a twisted press. I think that you can. And they didn't do any of that. They didn't even give the impression of fighting. It was just a rollover type thing. And I think that's the frustrating part. I think that's why myself and others are frustrated. Because it's just like, well, no, it was just going to pass. Let it go.
I think that's where we loop back to what Felicia was saying. If our Congress critters were better at communicating with the media that they do have on their side, if their press teams did a better job of communicating what the objectives were and what the strategy was to the folks at NRO and Town Hall and Heritage and Cato and Reason and get the word out that what we're doing, and there's been speculation that this is the idea, and I think an awful lot of us would have been able to get on board if we had been told, for real guys, this is what Boehner and McConnell are doing. They're going to pass this 1 year of funding of nearly everything with a couple of little levers in it that we can renegotiate in January, so that, because what we want to focus on is in January we want to hit really hard with Obamacare and amnesty, and we really want to still have that, so it's not worth us to fight over all of these other things. So we're going to just take those things off the table until next September, so that we can but we're going to do it in such a way that amnesty and Obamacare are on the table in January, and we hit that when we hit the ground running. And yes, America and Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi, you need to understand that we got a mandate from the American people on November 5th, and starting on November 6th, we're exercising that mandate. We don't have the votes in the Senate yet, but we're going to tell the public that you elected us, this is what we're doing, and we're going to tell all of our bloggers that this is the plan, so that they can communicate the plan effectively to their readership. And if we were smart, if our politicians were smart and did that, then we'd have an awful lot less damaging speculation going on amongst our bloggers and amongst our readership and commentariat that are still just trying to figure out. The most likely explanation is that Obama and the NSA have secrets on McConnell and Boehner because they're just giving up. You know, that sounds like a fairly logical thing, because we don't have any other story. They're not telling us.
Right.
I want to say one thing real quick. You know, for the right, those on the right professing that they have no belief whatsoever in psychics, we sure read a lot of tea leaves very, very well.
Because we ain't got nothing else to read.
That's true.
I want to ask, does anyone on this show think that there was a way in which this bill would not have been a disappointment to us?
No, it was going to be a disappointment no matter what.
Is there anything, any conceivable thing in any realistic universe in which anything that the Congress and Senate had put out that we would be happy with? Can we just accept that that's not going to happen? That we're not going to be pleased with what comes in Washington and what comes out of there? I think that's also an important thing to set your expectations. You can say that's less worse, but until we control much more of the government, it's going to be bad, and we have to decide what we can live with and what we absolutely can't. What are the biggest fights and what we just have to set down for a while and pick up later.
Right, and what Leslie said is absolutely correct. Talking about going through the channels to our media sources, to the bloggers and all of that, to sort of prepare the ground for what was going to happen. Even though, but the thing is that many of these bloggers also make their money off of outrage. Many of these people make their money off of, further stirring the pot. So there's stuff that could have been done a lot better, and that's the thing. I don't want to give anybody the impression that I'm, as Fishy said, I'm not super pleased that the omnibus or the cromnibus, whatever, passed. I would have definitely preferred it be a smaller bill. I would have preferred it be a smaller continuing resolution, but this is what we have to deal with. This is what I'm expecting this to happen, because I know what's going on as far as how Washington works. We know that this is what we're going to get. This is the crap sandwich that we're going to get handed for right now. We're still, we need to remember that there's more than just one legislative session. This isn't just, this isn't the last one ever. And future Congresses are not bound by these laws. They can pass their own resolutions. They can change this stuff. It's not like this is a permanent, oh God, it's done, game over, man. This is not the end of legislation going forward. And next year, as I said, as we've all said, we have more opportunities to fix this thing, to tweak it, and to make it more advantageous for us, and to focus on things like Obamacare and the amnesty.
Yeah, yeah. And
I have a question then. Could we agree, and this, because obviously there's some disagreement here as to whether or not they should have passed it or not amongst this group. Can we agree that as a whole then that the real crux of the matter lies in the way our elected officials have communicated with us? I think that
absolutely.
had they communicated with us properly and said, listen, this is what we want to do moving forward, before any of this came down, that we probably would have, shouted and said this is wrong, etc., because that's what we do. Let's be honest. I think that that's important and it's necessary. But we would have said, you know what, we'll grit our teeth, we'll let it go through. There would have been a day or two of rage, and then we would have moved on, and we said, okay, let's focus on what's, how do we move forward with that? Is that something that where we would find an agreement? And if so, if that is the crux of the issue, the problem, how do we get our Congress critters to fix that problem? That's my question.
First off, I think that the first thing that we need to do is we need to continue to call our Congress critters Congress critters. We should that's a thing that we should continue to do.
Because it's gender neutral, and it isn't bowing to the patriarchy or the cisgender hegemon or whatever the feminist term is these days.
Well, it makes me think of them as Pokemon creatures. I just have this ball with
like
this
cute
Congress
and
critter
cuddly
in
and
it.
stuff. I think I'm gonna crochet a little Congress critter.
Yes,
Thank you,
absolutely.
Fishy. Thank you so much for that.
Man, now I'm completely lost.
But yeah, I agree. It is a communication thing, and there's a very recent painful example of how bad communication can screw up even the truth. I placed a service ticket with a vendor of ours yesterday. It was very complex. I attached a bunch of information and screenshots and blah blah blah, and all I got back was an email. I logged in and fixed it. Okay, and then I logged into one of the sites that was supposed to be fixed, and it wasn't fixed. So then I got all kinds of irritated and reopened the ticket, and when they sent the customer satisfaction survey, I gave them a really not an excellent score. And then this morning got information from the technician that, well, actually what I had done when I got in to fix it at this one site, I saw the problem and I fixed the problem as you had said, and I uploaded it, and it was overnight going to be propagated out to all your other sites, and I have checked your other sites and they are good as of this morning, so everything is great. And I'm like, so dude, had you just said those 3 sentences yesterday, everything would have been fine and you would have gotten a great score. Because he really did fix the problem. He understood the problem as I had communicated it, and he really did, in fact, fix it. But because he did not communicate to me effectively, I didn't know that he had fixed it. He did not set the expectations properly, that it would all be fixed at all the sites by the next day. So I thought that he was bad and wrong and a failure and a loser and a bad person. He was, in fact, a good person, lousy communicator, and a good tech, but a lousy communicator. And that's an example of, and our Congress has done that to us. And what we've been getting in the midst of all of it is rumors, and I'm sure it's all is rumors that Boehner hates us and McConnell's going to foil us and all of that, which is rumors led by the left because they want us to believe that, and we are far too credulous and accepting of all of those stories. We know the media lies, we know the media hates us, but when that same media who lies and hates us tells us that John Boehner said something bad about the Tea Party, we believe it.
Well, and when we talk about what the left is very good at, they have, of course, this great, media complex that's supporting what they're doing, and conservatives don't. Okay. But that said, as you were talking about, using the media we do have, the media that should be friendly to us, and attempt to at least inform and let our folks know what processes are going on, what strategies are being thought about. It isn't as though we need those strategies broadcast everywhere so that the Democrats have an opportunity to counter that before we ever enact it. But what we probably need to do is start thinking as though we're all on the same team, perhaps, that we should be pulling together when possible.
Amen. Amen.
Pulling together when possible. That is not to say that you take anything uncritically that a congresswoman says, but that you give them the benefit of the doubt if they're talking to you. If they're not, it's very easy to assume something bad is going on when they just might not wanting to be letting the strategy out there. And so can we start maybe with the assumption that we don't know everything that's going on, and that's for two
maybe
reasons?
You don't, but I do.
Well, you might, but you're not telling me about it. See, you're
Leslie's
that
the
communicator.
worst communicator in the world. Doesn't tell anybody anything.
Can we start with that
Nothing.
assumption? Can we start with that assumption that we don't know what's going on there, that we're not in the cloakrooms, we're not hearing the things that are going on, and there might be a couple details that we're missing? And can we also go from there and say that in absence of that we should be communicating to our congresswomen that definitely they need to build better relationships with the conservative media that they have, the bloggers they have available to them, and that it would really help if they would take a lesson from Justin Amash, say, and put their reasoning out there. If they're going to try to defend a vote, it's a really easy thing to do. You're going to take hits on it. No one's going to be happy with it. Do it anyway.
Well, I'm going to jump in here and say, it's a leadership issue. It really boils down to leadership. I'm going to give you a classic example of prime leadership, General Patton. Since we're talking war here and we're using that, he never told all of his people what the plan was. If anything, he said, kill the other guy. And he blatantly said that. He says, it's not patriotic to die for your own country. What's patriotic is to make the other guy die for his country. And, I thought that was a brilliant statement. That said, we started, I believe, let's see, I need to check the date, but it was either yesterday or today, I believe it was today, or yesterday, is the anniversary for the start of the Battle of the Bulge. General Patton did something that nobody thought possible. In fact, all the other generals actually laughed at him because he suggested it in a meeting with General Eisenhower. He said he would move his entire army north to relieve the beleaguered troops that were surrounded in the Battle of the Bulge. And he did it. And he led from the front because he got out in front. In fact, at one point, he stopped, got out of his car, and directed traffic so that his troops could get there faster. You don't see that kind of leadership in Washington, and it's desperately needed. Now, there are people who show that, Patton-esque type of leadership, but I think when it comes to communication, they are horrible at it. We don't even have anybody attempting to direct traffic, if you will. Think about it. You have a horde of people that are just hungry for a place to go, and they're not being communicated with. And all you need to do is just put the plan in place to make it happen, communicate what you need them to do, and they'll go do it. And we don't have that. And as a result, you have the speculation because that's something to do instead of this is what we need you to do. This is where we need you on the front. This is where we need you working at. And yes, we have a plan. We can't share it yet, but it's coming and we need you to trust us. And if they did that, people would follow. And they don't. And that's the problem.
Absolutely. And, again, we're coming from an environment where we were in stall mode. We were in just prevent the Senate from passing anything horrible. That was the mode that we're in. We're transitioning into an entirely different game plan in 2015. So that's something else to consider, is that we aren't in that mode yet. We haven't transitioned to the offense yet. We haven't quite gotten those plans down. Ryan, what were you going to say?
So I haven't really had time to keep up on this very much, but one thing I did read was a post by Pradeep Shankar, and I shared the link and some quotes in the chat here. And it says that the GOP had two choices. You could either fight on immigration or you could fight on the budget. And in passing this budget, they're making it so that in January, when we get the House, have more in the House, and we get the Senate, then we fight on the immigration. Now, I haven't had time to study it to understand how that works, but we need to, I mean, I don't understand how it all works very well, so I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt right now, saying that hopefully you guys know what you're doing. Hopefully you are setting yourself up. Like JD just said, we've been in stall mode. Maybe you're kind of acquiescing right now, saying we're still kind of in stall mode. Let's give them what we want. That way we're not blamed for the government shutdown. Even though I think they could have spun that the correct way, I think we could have won on that. And when it comes up in January, this unpopular amnesty executive order, we're going to fight on that when we have more troops on the ground. That's really all I've heard about it. I don't know much about it. If that's what they are doing, it makes sense to me, but like Brass said, they need to do a lot better job at getting that message out to us. That maybe telling us, hey, we're doing this because of this, and this is a plan going forward, or at least, hey, be patient with us. We know what we're doing. Don't overreact yet. Some sort of communication to get that out there, because I've seen a lot of headlines on it and a lot of discussion on it, but that's the only article and discussion I've really seen that kind of put it in that way. You could fight on one of two things. They're choosing this because it's the more important, and that's why they did it. So.
Yeah, I'm so glad that that Pradeep wrote about this, because he's got, he's one of the sources that I'm extremely interested to read from. So everybody check that out. The link is in the chat, and I'm sure we'll link to it in the clips and in the main episode when it comes out. And hopefully we'll be able to put the links in the Vigilant Liberty share as well. So,
and if you want to see that conversation, you need to join the Conservative Union in order to see it, so make sure you've done that.
Links, please. Once
Wow,
again,
that was
links, please.
links, please. Yeah, the Conservative Union community on Google+. That's the host for the YouTube channel that all this stuff is played on, and that's where some of these conversations take place. And some of that content may be shared out to Facebook and Twitter. I'm not really sure. And right now we're experiencing a bit of a lull in the community because Pradeep Shankar is on vacation. He's been on vacation for 2 days. It's been totally noticeable, and he's going to be out until like right before Christmas, so it's going to be really, really quiet. The man is kind of the news RSS feed for an awful lot of people, because he reads a lot of sources and he shares a lot of articles throughout the day, and he shares many of them on Conservative Union and some of them just to his public feed. But there are a lot of people that don't really subscribe to any other news feeds besides Pradeep Shankar. He's pretty amazing. And okay, if it's time for a little advertising break, you are listening to The Refinery, and you can see us at therefineryshow.com. On that homepage, you can see the YouTube show, which is what this is. You can watch it. You can watch it live Tuesday nights at 8:30. You can watch it after the fact there on the website, and there are links also on the website to where you can get the podcast if all you want to do is download and listen during your long commute to work. You can listen to the podcast from Vigilant Liberty Radio, and then also on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, or Spreaker, and all those links are on the homepage. And then there's also like a contact us if you have ideas for the show or other guests that you want us to have on, things you want us to talk about, questions you would like to ask. So, communicate with us if you want to. Have we beaten the omnibus horse to death?
Almost. I think we've gotten past the omnibus, but there's one last thing that I wanted to touch on, and it gets us to the next story. And that is the Ted Cruz, Mike Lee vote on amnesty and the reaction to it, and that's really kind of been my big thing, more than anything about the omnibus and all of this is the infighting and the ridiculousness about these situations. I personally am not a fan of symbolic votes. That's just me. Strategically, I'm not a huge fan of it. That said, I'm not going to come out and call Mike Lee and Ted Cruz traitors. I'm not going to do that. I'm not, because it makes no sense. A, it's not true, and B, it makes no sense to do so. It's silly. But you have the sort of response to the situation. I read a piece in the Daily Caller by Matt Lewis talking about why it was not the best idea to go with this vote now, to sort of try and wedge in this symbolic vote about amnesty, strategically, whatever, whether you like it or not. That's what it is. It was a symbolic vote, and have the Democrats be allowed to pass their appointments, their appointees, and have them confirmed, instead of having Harry Reid, eventually put them in anyway, because that was what was going to happen anyway. Harry Reid was going to eventually sneak these guys in at the end of the session. To me, in my own perspective, I would rather have Harry Reid look like a dirtbag by sneaking people in under the wire at the last second. I think that's a better situation than having a symbolic vote. But the reaction to this thing happening, you've had people who get called rhinos or are establishment types, whatever, get called out for disagreeing with the strategy that Mike Lee and Ted Cruz are employing. And that reaction, the whole thing is just causing this infighting, which we've talked about already. That's absolutely ridiculous. And when I hear Mark Levin say that he's an inch away from quitting the Republican Party or whatever, I don't get it. I don't understand how this is helpful. You can dislike the policy, you can like the policy, you can dislike what Ted Cruz did, you can like what Ted Cruz did. But remember what side you're on here, and remember who we're going up against. For crying out loud, why on earth do we have to keep on attacking each other, attacking ourselves? We can have a disagreement, right? We can disagree on tactics. I disagreed with Ted Cruz's tactics on the shutdown. I didn't like it, and I think that it was, by the huge failings of the Obama administration that we were able to win this election in 2014. I'm so happy that we had all, the way that we got elected. I was really worried there for quite some time about the shutdown. But it's a disagreement in tactics. That's it. That's all it is.
I think I saw that Ted Cruz wrote a response or wrote an editorial on Politico today, and his conclusion of it, I think, was, I'm hoping is a position that most people can eventually get to. He says, it would have been much better if all 45 Republicans had stood together. For that reason, we had preferred another procedural vehicle, a straight up or down vote on defunding amnesty. But Harry Reid blocked that. So this was the only tool remaining. This was the only way to get a vote. And the procedural disagreement on the vehicle masks the breadth of the substantive opposition of Republican members to executive amnesty. Republican leaders have promised that the omnibus was part of a broader plan to force a fight to stop executive amnesty in January or February. I very much hope we come through on that promise. And if we do indeed stand united against amnesty 60 days from now, if we follow through on our commitments, none will celebrate and praise leadership more than I will. But we need action, not just words. We need resolve. And one of the most significant benefits of the fight this weekend was that almost every Republican, those that stood with us and those who voted against us, has once again gone to the press expressly agreeing that Obama's amnesty was unconstitutional. We should build on that, stand together in the new Republican Senate, and honor those commitments. If we're going to defend the Constitution, we must respond decisively to this constitutional crisis. And that, I think, was a pretty good perspective on it. Tactics, whatever, but what we have is every single Republican has gone to the press expressly agreeing that Obama's amnesty is unconstitutional. and it's a broader part of a broader plan to force a fight to stop amnesty in January or February. And he is saying that when this happens, none will celebrate and praise leadership more than he will.
Absolutely, and that's the thing.
That's where we need to be on this.
Disagree on tactics, and again, I don't really care for the symbolic vote. We could have, this is stuff that would have been just fine to do in January. Disagree on tactics, but yeah, I agree. Is it shocking? Is that so incredibly?
This doesn't sound like the Ted Cruz that the Democrats talk about. I mean, this sounds like a reasonable, rational human being.
Sure.
How can it be?
But that's the thing that I'm trying to get to, is that we can totally the thing that we have to remember is that we all pretty much agree that the amnesty that Obama wrote into, just with his pen, decided out of the air to make, we all agree that that's unconstitutional. We all agree that that's wrong. We are all on the same team there, on that side of things.
So basically,
just the only disagreement that we have
is how to fight it.
Is not how to fight it. We agree on how to fight it. This one little side plan to the broader plan in general. That's the thing. This is like a tiny little hunk of a plan that I would have preferred didn't happen the way it happened. That's it. It's a tiny thing. We should not be at each other's throats over this. And that's what too often it seems is the case.
My problem is that I don't know what McConnell's plan is. I don't know what John Boehner's plan is. What is the plan? If they're against amnesty, like they say they are, if they believe that Barack Obama's, though it wasn't even an executive order, what was it? It was a memo, or it was, who knows what it is that Barack Obama did. But whatever it is, it's absolutely unconstitutional. If impeachment is off the table, if shutting down the government is off the table, if symbolic votes are off the table, what is the plan to stop a president from making himself a king? That's what I want to know. What are they going to do? What's the plan? They need to let us know. Otherwise, they're going to keep finding a lot of people feeling very disenfranchised and believing, they're beyond speculating. We have a lot of people who are, really diehard Tea Partiers who believe that some of these people are in on it, so to speak. And I'm not there. But there's a part of me that wonders. That's where I live. That's the culture in which I am. I don't have the same perspective, perhaps, of somebody who lives on the Eastern Coast. I understand that there are cultural differences, even just among the states. But, that's the way that I'm seeing it. That's the way I'm hearing it. So
Well,
I want to know what the plan is.
I agree with you on that, and so this is what I would ask Jersey, because I think this is where we get into sort of the meat or the heart of the matter. I understand where Jersey comes from, that he's opposed to a symbolic vote. He doesn't feel that it moves things forward, and I think that that's actually a worthwhile discussion to have, and it's actually we've been having it. My question then though is that how do you communicate to those people that are feeling disenfranchised? Yes, there is something coming. There is something moving forward. Don't run away just yet. Don't take your ball and go home. We've got a plan, because right now there's a lot of people feeling like the leadership just doesn't have a plan and they're in on it. And so my question then is that what is the, if we're left to speculate, we don't know what that plan is, but how do we know? Because there's the old saying, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. And John Boehner, bless his heart, has fooled us multiple times, more than just once, more than just twice, and he said, no, we're going to get him on the next time around. And he has established a pattern of always saying, no, we'll do it on the next fight. Well, he now controls the House. He's now going to have a Senate that is Republican controlled as well, and further control the House. So from 2010 to 2014, he's only established one plan, which is we'll fight him the next time around. It's like he's waiting until all of the houses are Republican, then he can actually do something. But at that point, he's lost all his credibility. So how do you communicate to these people that something good is coming when the Republican leadership, in the form of John Boehner and somewhat Mitch McConnell, but to be fair to him, he was in a Senate where he was minority leader, and he will soon get to be majority leader. But how do you communicate to them, even though there's a lot of distrust, we need to still believe that way? Where is that line? And I'm gonna focus it on Jersey, and anyone else jump in.
Well, here's the first thing that I wanna get at is that you're saying how are we going to sort of build that trust? I don't think that you're asking for something from the leadership, and Ted Cruz is not. He's not a part of the establishment leadership. That's just not how it is. So this this vote isn't coming from the leadership. It's coming from Ted Cruz. So any opposition to the vote itself, or saying that it's a waste of time or whatever, doesn't even it causes more of an issue as far as this disenfranchisement goes. That's the problem, is that having this thing happen, having this vote happens, it actually causes some disenfranchisement, because there are people who we have on our side who are on the establishment, whatever, where it's not good for them politically to fight for this vote. It's not good for them politically to fight for this ceremonial, vestigial vote. That's the thing. It causes more of that. It causes more of that disenfranchisement, because then you have the radio show hosts, you have the ultra conservatives out there. Ultra conservatives, not you have the guys who make money off of causing this kind of ruckus between the Tea Party and the establishment. Get all loud and shouty about, oh, well, these guys didn't even support Ted Cruz and Mike Lee, and they're turning on them. No, disagreement in tactics. That's it. Can we please get past that?
Oh, okay. So we have a disagreement in tactics, but here's where I hear people from this point of view coming from, and I can't say that I'm that far from the camp. If anything, I'd be just down the street from it, which is to say that they see that what Ted Cruz is doing. They understand that it's a procedural vote, but ultimately you're not going to win it, and they understand that. But they feel like for the first time their voice is being heard. And as a result, they fall in love with that, because it's like, finally, my voice is being heard, and not only is my voice being heard, but I feel like in the form of Ted Cruz, the things that I've been shouting for years are finally being said on the Senate floor, and I desperately want them said, and I desperately want other people to hear them, especially the Republican leadership. And then what happens is people turn and say, oh, no, you can't say that because, procedurally it's wrong, or the tactics are all wrong. But at the same time, we feel like, hey, we're finally making a dent. We're finally doing something. And yet you say, well, the tactic there is really just...
But are you doing something? I guess that's the crux of it, is, are you actually doing something? Are you actually accomplishing anything? And to me, the answer is no.
And here's where I get sketchy on this. In Texas, for example, and I'm going to take this out of the realm of Washington just for a second. In Texas, for example, we have a Senate that has had 19 senators out of 31. You need 21 in order to pass anything without consulting the other side, without working with the other side. It's a rule they've had for a long time. In the House has been in Republican hands 4, 5, 6 sessions now, something like that, and once by an overwhelming number of 150 or 100 Republicans to 50 House members. So in the House in Texas, you had huge numbers of Republicans who could pass anything they wanted to that would make them look extra special good when they went home. And they did it from a safe perspective because they knew that the Senate didn't have to pass it. That there were enough Democrats to vote against those things so that they didn't have to actually enact things. Here's the downside for them. Nothing. They can pass whatever they want, as bold as they please, and then know that they don't have to be held responsible because it's never going to hit the other house. There's some of that, I think, going on in the federal government level. You've had this House in Republican hands for a few years now, and it's been very politically safe to pass whatever they want, knowing the Senate is never going to pass it because it is in Democrat hands. You are going to see a different dynamic coming in January when you have both houses, and all of a sudden there are things that need to pass that both houses can say they support, but they've got to follow through now. Up to now, most everything that was ever done in terms of votes in Washington for the past 4 or 6 years has been done for political and posturing and image purposes. I'm just saying that. I'm just laying it out there. Now they're going to have to govern. That's a big step. It's going to take a while to transition from that former way moving into the new way. And additionally, one thing that we need to think about as well with these guys, we know they're not good at messaging. We know they're not good at understanding the themes and resonating with the grassroots. We know they have trouble with those things. We have got to be in communication with them now while they haven't quite made that transition yet, so that they're listening to us when we go into the next session. We need to be in touch with their offices. We need to be the people that get invited to their local meetings when they come home. We need to be the people that see their staffers and know them by name. And anybody who is worried about what their senator or their congressman is doing, that is one of the best ways you can begin to get your voice heard and not have to depend on Ted Cruz to say it into an empty chamber in the Senate, but have that actually be a staffer having looked you in the eye and told you something. And then if you're lied to, they're going to be able to be held accountable for that. That representative is going to be able to be held accountable for that. We've sat back and watched like spectators for far too long. And all of us, every single one of us, needs to start being regular visitors, regular communicators, regular callers to those offices. Yes, it sucks, but how important it is that they hear you and know your face and know your name, and then it gives them a point of contact, someone to whom to be accountable. We have let them run roughshod for too long. We've let them worry about those other things and build safe little kingdoms for them where they're not challenged. We need to be in touch far more often than we are, and that they are not responsive to us, in part, is our fault.
Yeah, and I think you're touching on a couple of pretty important, well, one important concept that has two big effects. One is our politicians are much more likely to do what we want them to do if they see us as supporting them and being in favor of them, because you want to help people that are nice to you. I am not inspired to help somebody who is yelling at and about me all the time. I'm inspired to help people that are nice and friendly, and I will support them and they will support me, and it becomes a mutual happy thing. And that doesn't mean that I have to be always supportive of my legislator, but the Mark Levin approach, I don't think it's going to win him a lot of, I don't think it's going to get a lot of Congress people to want to, oh, well, what does Mark Levin have to say about that? What does Mark Levin want me to do? Well, Mark's always going to yell at you and about you and scream at you and scream about you, so who cares? I want to please somebody that I have the opportunity to please. If I know that you're never ever going to be happy with what I'm doing, I'm not going to care what you think because you're always going to hate me anyway. So I'm going to try to please you if I believe that there's a way that I can please you.
And that's
And
not to say, I got to say this because I know you're saying this with this intention. That is not to say that we necessarily think that the world ought to work that way, but that is in fact
it's
how
human
humans
nature.
behave.
Yeah, absolutely, it's human nature. And so, it behooves us to be the nice person that they want to do nice stuff for, and and by the flip side, what we want is someone who's on our side. And that's why the Mike Lee, Ted Cruz, and sometimes Rand Paul branch of the Republican Party is so appealing to us, because we feel like they agree with us. What we get from Republican leadership is they agree with the Democrats and the media and Obama, and they're telling us what we should do. Well, I put you there. I want to know that there's somebody up there that agrees with me and that is on my side. I want them to be on my side because they've asked me to be on theirs, and I have been. I was a massive, massive cheerleader for this recent election. And no, it's not like I got them elected, but I spent an awful lot of time and effort to try to get them some more votes, to be that positive voice. Come on, guys, let's look at the good things that they can do, and let's get them there, and let's get us more of a majority. And then now they're there, and they aren't on my side. What?
But it's December still.
And
I mean,
here, go ahead, Dave.
I understand that, but the ones
I'm
that are
just
there
saying that.
should be on my side because I'm sending them reinforcements.
It sounds like one
But
of
the
the things that we need to
reinforcements
do.
aren't there yet. The reinforcements aren't there yet, and that's the. We have to remember the situation on the ground as it is, not how we want it to be, and we're going to, that's the mind-boggling thing about all of this, is the fact that we aren't even in the 2015 legislative session yet, and we're already starting this. Oh my God, let's panic. Let's
No, but there are ways that they can still be the minority, but like me. They're not acting like they like me and that they're trying to make me happy.
Perhaps what we need,
It comes back to
if I
the
may,
communication thing.
if I may, it sounds like what we need to do at a grassroots level is actually start passing out copies of how to win friends and influence people to the Tea Party people.
No
And
kidding.
I don't mean that in a snide or snarky way. I actually mean that in a sincere way. To go back, what you said is you need to be nice. Just because you're nice doesn't mean that you roll over. And I want our listeners to understand that is that you're not rolling over. Sometimes what you do is you do things that get people to move in the direction that you want them to because of how you treat them. And perhaps what we need to do is step back and say, okay, I want the Republican leadership to move in this direction, and the yelling at them hasn't been working, so perhaps what I need to do is go to the tried and true way that does work, which is a book that has stood the test of time, which is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Go back, read it, and digest it and say, okay, how can I apply this to the political process so that my Republican leadership, pardon me, says, yeah, that's the direction we want to go. Because now they want to work with us rather than fighting us.
The question is, how do I get what I want? Ultimately, the question is, how do I get what I want? Given what's going on the ground, given the changing political situation we're about to go into, how do I get what I want? And you should be asking yourself that question all the time. And you are not, in fact, going to get everything that you want, but you want to have the best possible chance of getting what you want. And there are ways to work for that are effective. There are ways that work against you when you employ them. And tactically, even down at our level, at the grassroots level, we have to think strategically.
Absolutely. And here's another thing that I just want to point out. I'm not saying that we shouldn't primary John Boehner. I'm not saying that at all. That's something that isn't something that we can do this second, though. Right now, we can't get rid of John Boehner. it's very likely that he's going to be the no. I think it's already done. I think he's pretty much going to be the Speaker of the House. It's it. Thankfully, Congress critters have 2-year terms. So there you go. If you wanna if this was the last straw, then I expect to see a ton of money from around the country going in and flooding Ohio, whatever district he's in, to get him out. We got rid of Eric Cantor. David Brad is there. So apparently that's something that we can do. So the other thing that we need to remember is that there's a time and place to get rid of these guys. Right now is not that time, and we can be upset about stuff that they're doing, and we can complain about it, and we can talk to our representatives about it and say, hey, that's not how I want it to go down. But when it comes to Speaker Boehner, he is in office still. We can get rid of him, and we should. I mean, I'm not a fan of the guy. I like Mitch McConnell much more than I like John Boehner. But that's
not
later.
Really a high bar to get over there either.
That's true. That's true. But
that's you're over.
But that's what I'm saying, is that there's a time and place for this stuff, and getting rid of him is not an option right now. It's not something that we can do conceivably. So there are going to be good things that come out of this next legislative session. There absolutely are. There are going to be great fights. There are going to be stuff that we can win on and stuff that we can get to the president that is going to make him damn uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, and I think all of us are on both sides of all of these issues. I know I am. I totally see JD's position, and I totally see everybody else. I see the angry position, and I'm angry too, and I'm tired of them. I'm tired of fighting for them and them fighting against me. They don't always fight against me, but they do it way too much. Or I hear about it, that they're doing it too much, and that's because they're crap at communicating. And they're professional political people, and they can't communicate for crap. And the other big thing that I've got going on right now is that JD's lighting is going in and out, at least for me, and so it looks like there's a disco ball going on, because sometimes he's like bright white and sometimes he's warm. It's like the Google effect thing. It's awesome.
That's my disco ball. It's
the disco ball.
Yeah.
All right.
It's awesome. His 70s throwback era. The 70s throwback era. I love it. It's awesome.
It's totally cool, and it's making me happy. And what's something else that's making me happy? This is a much lamer segue. What's something else that's making me happy? $2 gas. Let's talk about $2 gas. Felicia, you're up.
Oh, my stars. Okay, so everybody has noticed that that gas prices have come down. It's been this story in the media for a lot. We can definitely lay that a lot at the feet of the success of fracking. We have boosted our production a whole bunch. I really wish Corey were here. She could speak to this much better than I can. But suffice it to say, coming into the Christmas season, consumers have a lot more money in their pocket because it's not going into their gas can, their gas tanks of their cars anymore. And this is a great thing. You know, that you think extra Christmas presents, you're thinking, you know, maybe a little extra trip to see, a couple extra days to go see the family during the holidays, whatever it is. But people have more money in their pockets. They got more walking around money, as it were. And it's because these guys in the petroleum industry have done some amazing work. They have boosted output so much. The Saudis are worried. Everything, you know, all the good things that are coming from this are just enormous. And then we get this perspective from sfgate.com, which is...
And that's San Francisco, right?
Imagine so, okay? And the
It just
title...
sounds like granola, doesn't it?
It's so crunchy, it's not funny. The title of this piece is called $2 Gas is the Worst Thing to Happen to America. I want everybody to just soak that up for a second.
The worst thing of all the worst of all the bad things that have ever happened to America, ever. $2 gas,
Ever.
totally the worst. Totally, man. Like, for sure.
Completely.
I mean,
$2
slavery was
gas.
bad, but this way worse.
This will
December
not
7th,
stand.
1941 kind of sucked. I mean, it rained in a few places, but this $2 gas thing, man, that's crap.
9/11, just a walk in the
The
park.
Jimmy Carter
Gas,
administration,
awful.
nothing.
So is it bad because all of a sudden, it's going to be easier for people to get to the grocery store with a little bit less money? Is it bad that people are going to be able to get to the hospital for needed treatments with
They
a
can
little
buy
bit
more
less
stuff at
money?
Walmart, which makes
They can.
Walmart successful, and that's bad.
Oh,
Yes.
it's all bad.
Yes, you guys, you clearly, since you're not on a coast like I am, you don't understand this. You plebes don't understand the concept of environmentalism and the fact that if people are driving, no,
educate the plebes, educate the.
Yes, thank you. I can't even understand what you're saying because you're from Texas. The thing is that if people have more money and have better access to gas, to fuel, they're driving around, and that increases their carbon footprint, and that means that they're less likely to try and buy energy efficient vehicles and stuff that technically also burns fossil fuels because they need to power the electric plants somehow, but we don't really think about that too much. There are windmills involved.
Here's what the article says. When gas prices skyrocket, we adapt in all the right ways. We drive less, we ride share more, we telecommute, we walk to work, we get out of our cars and back into the more connected social flow. Alternative transportation gained tremendous support, and people begin to think differently for the better. And then you skip down in this article, and here is what they suggest. Here's an even more awesomely helpful and radical idea than increasing the gas tax just a little. Increase it $5 per gallon. Hell, make it $6. All of it earmarked for alternative energy and transport, environmental protections, our busted educational system, our multi-trillion-dollar debt. Yes, let's double, no, triple the price of gas right now so that we can do these things that we are already kind of up into our ears and hock for doing, but we want to do more of them. So let's make it more impossible for the poorest and the lowest income people to get around, do things, have a little more groceries in their cart or more presents under their tree. Screw that. Just jack up the prices 3 times as much. Because reasons.
Listen, without these high gas prices, okay, and this is really the crux of what the article is about, okay, if there were high gas prices, the author of this article wouldn't have the money to be able to go visit their relatives. But now with $2 gas, they have no excuse to be able to say, oh, you know what? I can't make it there for the holidays. So really, that's the crux of what this article's about. I know it's not written in there, but that's the subtext. Since we're on the right and we're really good at reading tea leaves, I just thought I'd say that's what this is really about.
So Pajama Boy doesn't want to have to drive home for Christmas, is what you're saying, and have his mom
pretty much
getting his own place, buying a house, and marrying that girl that he's been living with for years.
Exactly. And by the way, I would just like to say, I, for one, even though I'm from Texas and I'm just, a proly, I support more Cylindras. I think that we should fund more companies that go bankrupt, because the environment and everything.
I think we should all eat more meat, not chicken, because that means we have to breed more cattle, and cow farts are what really cause global warming.
No.
No?
No, because that takes us back to the Cromnibus, because
what?
That's not in there. The EPA,
the EPA?
They took it out. Can't. It's one of the. There you go. You found the one good thing about the Cromnibus.
Bovine flatulence.
Bovine flatulence is out. It's out of there. No
So
more.
cow farts are okay then.
They can't regulate cow farts.
Oh my God, unregulated cow farts? The world is coming to the end. So this
That
really
has
is
got to be
the
a
worst thing that ever
band.
happened to America. The worst thing.
That has got to be a band name. Unregulated cow flatulence.
I sense a hashtag.
Yes. And, well, Chandra really hits the actual point. High gas prices create a bigger divide between the haves and the have-nots, and that's what's really important. Because when gas prices are low, poor people can go places that the rich people go. And we don't want poor people in our shops. I think the guy who writes this article is concerned that there are going to be some poor people that can afford Starbucks now. And he's used to going to Starbucks and only seeing fellow hipsters like him and not having to mingle with the great unwashed.
Unless they're across the counter.
Amen,
Well,
Leslie. Thank you for that. That's exactly what I meant. You said it better, but that's precisely what I meant.
Yeah,
Starbucks
they don't want, and I shop at Walmart on a regular basis. I'm the kind of person that this SF Gate guy doesn't want to have to see and believe exists in the real world. Plus, I'm a Texan, so he would never want to see my kind of person anyway. And by the way, feeling totally mutual. I don't want to go places where he goes either.
See, that would be a perfect place to go into the Kurt Schlichter article.
Oh, Red America, Blue America? Yeah.
Because the left wanting to sort of secede from what's the term there? The article from the Daily Beast, not Schlichter's article, but the one that he based it on. The free market Jesus paradise, I believe. Amazing.
Is that what it was?
Yes.
Free market Jesus paradise. Yes. And I think we should talk about this more next week as our prior to Christmas fantasy.
Look at that. We can actually promo for next week. This is something.
Yeah, because it's a great article that talks about this beautiful future where free market Jesus paradise has separated from we have Red America and Blue America, and Kurt sort of projects us into the future where President Abbott, the president of Blue America, or actually he calls it the Republic of America or something.
Republic of America.
Republic of America with President Abbott. As soon as I saw the words President Abbott, my heart grew 3 sizes bigger. It just made me so happy. That's the future I want to live in.
So that's everyone's homework for next week, is to go and read that article so we can all talk about it. And also, Free Market Jesus Paradise, also a good band name.
I'm sensing
opening for unregulated bovine flatulence is Free Market Jesus Paradise at CPAC.
Sadly, those are both band names that would be on bands that probably would be shooed away from CPAC. CPAC is a little bit snooty about what bands show up and can play at their events.
They have bands. They have bands at CPAC. What?
Well, such as it is. Well, let's not get into that particular rabbit hole.
Can I point out one thing? It is been the fact that we have had low-cost energy in this nation, and really in Europe as well, that has driven the free market economy. It is because we have low-cost energy available to us that we are so productive and so successful as a society.
And that we have raised the standard of living for the entire planet.
Yeah.
Think
We bring
about where
the
we
old
were
ones
in
that benefit from this
1970. I
stuff.
mean, since we got Disco Boy here going, I mean, let's go back to the 1970s for a moment, okay? And Jersey, to be fair, I understand that you weren't there. I was, and I actually sat in the back of my dad's car in the gas lines. I like to
I
point out
remember those.
once. I did it once because my father swore never to take us for gas again.
Oh my God,
Um,
we sat on Derry Ashford in a gas line for hours, and it was a particular day based on your license plate. It was terrible.
Yes. Yeah, it was a national thing. It was based on the last number of your license plate. It was awful. That said, I want you to think about what the poor in this nation had in the 1970s versus what the poor have in this nation now. Think about how many people had air conditioning in the South in the 1970s versus how many people in the South have air conditioning now. Think about how many people had a refrigerator, a microwave, a television for that matter, gaming systems. I mean, I grew up poor. We didn't have a gaming system. There was one guy in the neighborhood that had a gaming system. And on the days when it wasn't raining, we all went over to his house to play. And he didn't want to play because it was nice outside, so he could finally go outside, and all of us were showing up to play on his gaming system. Now everybody can play, and they can network and everything else, and then when it's nice, they still stay in. But that's an aside. The point being, what the poor, the quote-unquote poor in this country have now versus what they had then, a lot of that is based on the fact that we had cheap energy prices. You don't get those goods anywhere by just suddenly magically appearing in Walmart. I'm sorry, but that low-cost TV is low cost in part because the shipping costs are so low. You don't have Amazon Prime because the shipping costs are high. You have them because the shipping costs are low. You get free 2-day shipping from Amazon because shipping costs are low, and the reason they're low is because of cheap, affordable energy. $8
Again, we are not
gallon gas?
sponsored. We're not sponsored by Amazon, so
No.
you cannot enter the refinery in the code field and get a $10 discount.
Dang
Sorry.
it. You know, I only have one more Christmas shopping day left. Anyway.
But I might
Amazon,
be changing all of our links to affiliate links if I can make a buck off of that. Because the Koch brothers have not sent us money yet.
We're still waiting on that check. It's terrible.
What?
What?
Come on, I need some Coke money here. Coke. Wait, that didn't sound right.
No, it didn't. And before we close, because we've only got like, I don't know, 10-ish minutes left, not the main thing, but one of the important things that I wanted to talk about, and I know Felicia wants to talk about, is an article that she wrote that it's really, really, really important. I mean, the title is The Right Questions, and the article is about asking yourself the right questions before you read a story, react to a story, respond to a story, share it, or comment. Do you want to talk about it a little bit, Felicia?
Sure, sure. What happened is I got into this long conversation over a particular piece that someone wrote, and I could not figure out why it was written. And it was something simple about Al Sharpton and something he said, and then refuting it with all these other things. And I'm certain there was a good reason behind writing it, but I could not deduce it. And I was really upset, inordinately so, because very often I share things on Facebook and Google Plus and etc. that I want people to read because I think that they're useful, and I couldn't find a use for this article, and I thought, well, you know, that's not an isolated incident. I run into a lot of those pieces. And I struggled over this. I talked to different people about this, about how to communicate what I was feeling, the discomfort with this particular piece. And it was over an author that not only that I like, but that I know personally from our online interaction. And I was just very disappointed, and I tried to figure a way to constructively deal with that. And I got to thinking, well, I wonder how many people ask the same questions that I do when they're reading a piece and deciding to share it.
And the answer is not enough.
Well, that's my opinion, obviously, but so I wrote this piece called The Right Questions, and it's not just about asking the right questions, but being a part of the right, which questions everything. And so I had dual meanings for that title. The first item that I want people considering when they approach a piece is, what's the author's goal or purpose? There are some purposes I find very useful, Am I getting something strategically? Am I getting some facts, some strategy that I hadn't thought about, encouragement? Yeah. Those are good things, and I appreciate those. But there's some other authors who just live off the outrage of the day, or the stupid things liberals said. Those are nice to know, but I'm done with that. Maybe it's me, but I'm beyond the point where I need an update on the liberal outrage. I just don't. And so the next question I asked was, is this author honest? I think that's a really important question. If I'm reading in the way that they write, that they're using words like reportedly, everyone knows, things like that, then I can't really trust them. I want backups and links, or if they're speculating, I want them to clearly say so and not make assumptions that are based on their opinion, but that don't really have any support behind them. If you're speculating, tell me so. And there are a lot of people whose motives aren't pure. I mean, we know that. People who are just looking to get a reaction or to get some sort of ire stirred up without any honest purpose behind it. So I like to know if an author is honest. And I want to know who his audience is. And this is really important to me because if I'm sharing things, I want to make sure I'm not going to share something that goes over people's heads, turns them off, that I can't, or if it has jargon in it, that I can sort of explain that ahead of it. And an author might be writing to the right, or the middle, or the activists in the Tea Party, or the left. It might even be taking on the left and trying to go toe-to-toe with the left. That's fine, but I need to consider before I share who they're talking to so that message doesn't get lost and I don't discourage other people from following my feed or reading the things I share because they're just too esoteric or they just talk in that jargon and nobody knows what they're saying. And my final question that I put, and this is not the whole list, but what I wanted people to take away, does what this author says advance my goals? Now, I start from the perspective that I have some activism goals that I want to achieve, and I understand the world a certain way. And some authors may have different worldviews and look at things differently. It doesn't mean they don't share my goals. It just means that might not be a fit for me to share. But there are some who don't share my goals, whose goal might be the attention of a particular segment or making their fortune off of hits and clicks or whatever. I understand that, but I'm looking very carefully to see, does this person match up? Are they an ally of mine, or are they doing more harm than good? And so I'll be careful about sharing things that I don't think advance my goals, just to have them out there. And so I want people to think about that because in thinking about Ferguson and thinking about Eric Garner and thinking about the cases that were out there, Rolling Stone and University of Virginia is a good example. I want people to not be afraid to ask questions of an author and think that that equals an attack. And that is exactly what the left is trying to do with the Rolling Stone reportage. They're trying to say that if you question this woman's account or Rolling Stone's account, then you are part of the rape culture. You are denying rape. You're blaming the victim, everything like that. I don't want us to be that kind of people. I want us to accept questions and encourage questions. And if someone is questioning some hero of yours or some person that you really admire, think about whether that is an attack or whether that's a conversation around can we do things better. So that was the essence of what I wanted to talk about in that article, hoping that people start asking those questions being more thoughtful consumers of what's out there.
And it's about more thinking, less feeling. And, when I reshared this article, I tried to impress upon the people who are reading and resharing articles that your post is about understanding what the author of a blog post or an article what were his goals, and is he honest, and is he advancing your goals, and who is his audience. But we have to think of ourselves as authors as well. When I write an introduction to your post or an introduction to someone else's post, I'm taking on the role of author, and I need to think about who is my audience and what are my goals, and am I an honest author that people who read me can trust.
And by that same token, it also works for when you are clicking on somebody else's links and how they frame those links and how they frame those articles.
Right.
So
I reshare clickbait and outline it and describe it and help people understand. So one of the things I do at the Conservative Union a lot is I will see an article that has some real obvious emotional manipulation going on in there, and I will share it to my friends at the Conservative Union and point out that stuff, because my audience is people on my side who are activists. But I'm also conscious that at the Conservative Union we're speaking to activists, but also representing ourselves to people who are in the middle and on the left, and looking at the Conservative Union as what are conservatives like, and they're coming in and looking to see what is it conservatives are doing and what are they saying. So I have to be conscious that it's not just my people that I'm talking to. I do want to communicate to my people and say, here, understand this, see and understand the manipulations that are going on in this article, as a way to make yourselves a more active reader, rather than saying, here, look at this article, aren't all liberals idiots and bad people, oh, horrible bad. Because that's the kind of thing you say, kind of as an internal memo to your own people, not as this is the strategy and I want the public to see it. It gets kind of complicated when you have a crossover audience that you're trying to address, or at least be prepared for your stuff to be read for. But it does mean that it works to share manipulative bad, kind of quote bad unquote articles, as long as you're putting like an introduction of, I want you guys to see this and read this a little more thoughtfully, and here's an example of kind of stuff, to try to guide people into reading a bit more thoughtfully.
So what you're trying to do is eliminate hacks, trolls, and link bait? Good.
Or at least identify that.
Wow. Crazy talk.
I know.
There's only so much, should Megyn Kelly be fired to please the black community, comment yes or no, that you can take.
One crazy thing that you'll never guess what they said when, yeah.
And then I wrote that article and this happened.
Oh my God, those are the best. You'll never believe.
You're right, I won't, and that's why I'm not going to click on this. Goodbye.
Yeah, there was even, heck, I watch way too much TV, and I looked at the TV Guide website because I wanted to know something about some episode that I had missed of something, and there was a headline that's, you'll never guess why so and so is divorcing, and I clicked at the article and it was irreconcilable differences. All right, that was the whole content. They're divorcing because of irreconcilable differences.
You never would have guessed that reason.
Well, no, you know what? I have to.
No,
I have to give them props.
They got me to click.
No. I have to give them props because they actually reported on the story in the title. So many times with these clickbaity titles, the story isn't even reported on. It's something completely different from what the title actually says. But that's another show. That clip will be included in the description below at the end of the show. So.
Hey, here's a question, and I'm going to put this on the live part of the show because I want it to be out there that I asked this question. There are websites, even on our side of the fence, that all they are is content scrapers. They take stories from other publications, copy the content, create a new blog post on their site, paste the entire content. Sometimes they will include a link back to the original. Other times they will just say that this was written by Bob at blog.com. but they'll write it, but it'll be published on their blog under their masthead, and they're doing it so that they can then publish 100 posts per day, and they become a highly trafficked website, and they sell ads and they make money at this, but they're really stealing other people's content. And some of them are popular websites and their stories get shared out. What do we do about that? I mean, what is a responsible conservative who wants the conservative press to become popular and well read? What's the right kind of way to deal with that kind of stuff?
It's a good thing for the viewers and listeners to think about and comment next week. Come in the chat room and tell us what they think and all of that fun stuff.
And it's not really
lovely.
And it is plagiarism. Yeah, it is plagiarism.
Well, I have a question about that. Is it
theft.
truly plagiarism, or is it just like, say, the AP will publish an article and all the other news articles or all the other news sites will actually republish it under their header, just putting that it's an AP story? So
they are authorized to do so, and they pay for that.
Okay.
The AP licenses in syndication. Like, we are syndicated on Vigilant Liberty Radio. We have given him permission to rebroadcast this show. This is content scrapers where it's theft. It's actual theft.
See, then that's a problem for me, because if it's not licensed, at least they're giving credit back. But still, I mean, at that point, I would find the original article and share that instead of the one that I came across. To be honest with you, I would go to the source and share that, not the repost. But that's just me.
That is what I try to do when I come across a story like that. I try to go back to the originals. I want to give the credit and the traffic to the people who originally put it up.
Because it's traffic theft is really what they're doing. And sometimes you can find the original if there is no link back, and you're allowed to copy and excerpt a certain percentage of somebody else's stuff to talk about it, make a transformative work and that kind of thing. But taking an entire article by someone else and republishing it, even if you do link to the original, to me, it's theft. And sometimes you can find it by Google searching for a sentence out of the paragraph or whatever. But there are some fairly popular conservative sites, and that's what they are. And that just breaks my heart, because that's not a conservative value to me at all. That's just, and I don't know, it may be wrong for me to claim that honesty and integrity are conservative values. They're my values. I suppose they're honest liberals.
I guess I would have to say, I would like to also put this out there, that I don't mind somebody like, say, and I'm going to use him because he's popular, Drudge. But Drudge is really just a site full of links. So he actually links you to the original article as opposed to copying it and saying, hey, this is on my blog. And so I appreciate the fact that he actually sends me to the original source. So if you had, say, a conservative website that was linking the same way that Drudge did, I wouldn't have a problem with that, because it essentially takes you to the source of the article. But if you're doing a full copy paste and then putting it on your own just so that you can generate traffic, that to me seems a little underhanded, and quite frankly, it really doesn't follow conservative values. So that's just me.
The great way to do it, I think, is the Instapundit Glenn Reynolds way. You excerpt a quote or two, put the link in there, send people to the traffic, and that's why the term Insta-lanched became a thing, because he would drive traffic to people and they would shut down servers because so many people would be clicking. That is what you want, someone who's going to pass the credit where credit's due and give people the traffic that they do indeed deserve.
And that's shared prosperity and shared good fortune, and that's generosity of spirit to me. When it's like, hey, here's this cool thing I discovered, you should go support this person who wrote this cool thing. At least to me.
Yes, and that's why everybody should link to our videos and send them to our pages, so that we can get more views and that we can share our message out there.
And
Syndication, baby. Syndication.
Syndication, absolutely. If you listen to the show on Spreaker, follow the show on Spreaker so that we get more followers. And same with iTunes and Stitcher and what's the other one? TuneIn.
I gotta
And
say,
and follow us and share and join and review and all that kind of stuff.
it's really important if people. Hang on, Brass. It's really important if people support what we do, and we have a huge compliment this week from Tim and from the Conservative Union, which was just fabulous in his really effusive praise of what we do, and we appreciate it so much. He follows through, he shares, he comments, and Tim, thank you so much from all of us for.
He was our first iTunes customer subscriber person.
Nice.
No.
He's been looking for good content. He was telling people all over that he found it in the refinery, and we cannot say how much we appreciate that. And getting into the ethic of the habit of sharing good content with other people and saying, this is something I want to support. This is something I want to see more of. It helps us become better. It helps other people in their content, get better content in their feeds. All of that does help. So when you find something good, it's good to like it. It's good to plus it. It's good to hit retweet. Sharing it is so important. Let other people know what you find good. Whether it's us, whether it's something else, let other people know what you support. And do support some good conservative content so that more people will be encouraged to make more and better content. Competition helps us all.
Yes, and sharing posts, sharing these videos and commenting on it, absolutely. We read all of the comments, every single one of them, multiple times. Sometimes, with various responses. Personally, I know I've been affected by several comments, but it's always good to read those comments, and it makes us better, as Fishy said. It helps us know what you guys want us to talk about.
Yes, we like feedback, and there are so many mechanisms that you can use for feedback on the blog or YouTube or all of the sites that we have the podcast thing, accept comments, and they will all notify us, and then we can read them and talk about you behind your back. Oh, wait, I said that out loud, didn't I? Whoopsie.
Inside voice, Leslie. Hello.
I need an editor. Bad. Not a bad editor, but I need you know what I meant. Anyway, that, okay, Felicia.
Redo.
Felicia's got her head in her
we need a mulligan.
Because my first thought is the word that you're looking for is badly. I went straight for the adverbial prompt there. I wasn't even thinking about what you actually said. I was thinking as an editor.
Yes, you were. And
the grammar police are here, Leslie. The grammar police are here. They would like to have a word with you.
Mm-hmm. And I was wondering which one of y'all was going to be the first to go. Badly. Leslie, you mean
She will always be first.
So predictable.
Conan the Grammarian, people.
Conan the Grammarian.
Fishy the Grammarian, yes.
Yes. You're a little grammar midget. Absolutely.
The hardest part about this show is saying goodbye. Did y'all notice that? The hardest part about the show is saying goodbye because we have so much fun.
I know. And we're overdue. We started late and we're still finishing late because, well,
we like each other.
There was just an awful lot to talk about, but we do need to call it a night, and that means that we are done for today, and we appreciate all of you, and come see us on therefineryshow.com, and come see us next Tuesday, December 23rd at 8:30 when it's time for our last show before Christmas, and we're going to talk about the Kurt Schlichter article about the future America, which will be just wonderful with President Abbott. So we will see all of y'all next week, next Tuesday, 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern, but 8:30 Texas time, and that's what's important. Thanks, everybody.